Hey nerds, what's up? Today I'm going to be sorting the Knight's Radiance orders, the Enneagram personality types, and the Myers-Briggs personality types into Hogwarts houses to see if there's any correlation between the four and if we can kind of predict what personalities go in each one. See you after the jump. Now, if you think this video is pretty random, you'd be right. I thought of this one night when I was having really bad insomnia and I was just thinking about how I am a Ravenclaw and an Elf-Caller and my personality type and how they kind of all correlate. I feel like being an Elf-Caller and a Ravenclaw makes sense together. And I wondered if this was true for other orders and Hogwarts houses and personality types. So we're just gonna do this. Before we get started, real quick, just in case you don't know, Hogwarts houses are from a book called Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. I'm pretty sure you guys all know that one. But the Knight's Radiance orders are from a book series called The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And then the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs are both personality tests that have been around for quite a bit of time, and I will be linking ways to take all of these tests for free in the description box, so if you're interested in playing along, I will leave that down below. I should note that I did a little survey of my Instagram followers to see how well I accurately predicted this, so we're gonna go through how I sorted everything into houses, and then we're gonna see how accurate I was based on my small sample size of my Instagram followers. Now, there was a lot of ways I could have done this, but to keep things simple, what I ended up doing is sorting everything basically into houses. So it would have been a little different if I took a Knight's Radiant order, say Truth Watcher, and seen all the personality types that make sense for that one. Instead, I kind of did here are the houses, which Knight's Radiance orders do I think go with each of those houses? And then which personality types go with each of the houses that I put in, which kind of gives us an option for what your potential house, Knight's Radiant order, Enneagram, and Myers-Briggs personality type could be if I predict it right. It'll probably make more sense as we get into it. Let's start sorting. Okay, the best way I thought to do this was to just do a tier maker, which isn't exactly what we're doing, but as you can see, that way I kind of have all of our houses and I have all the personality types and Knight's Radiance orders below, and so I can put them where I think they belong just as a visual reference for you guys. Thought it would be fun to start with Knight Radiant orders. And let's start with Windrunner. Windrunner is our big one, right? And their kind of motto is, I will protect. They're the big sibling types. They want to protect everyone. They want to defend innocence. I think this one's personally pretty obvious. When I think Windrunner, I think of Gryffindor. I just think that they have very similar kind of bravery and protection elements to them. Okay, next we have Skybreaker. Skybreaker is, I will seek justice. Skybreaker is about fighting for causes, enforcing social rules. I think Skybreakers are probably gonna go under Slytherin, not just because of Nail. I feel like I don't subscribe to the Slytherins are the evil ones or anything like that. I just think that Skybreakers have a lot of ambition and they're also really big on law, justice, tradition. And I think that could translate to a Slytherin's need to follow tradition as well. And so I think that's a good fit for them. So next up is Dustbringers. Dustbringers' whole thing is I will seek self-mastery, and they're also themed towards responsibility, and then they're kind of taught the powers of destruction, and there's this whole thing about how they don't really think they're destroying, they think they're creating. This one I struggle with because I feel like it follows the fine line of Gryffindor and Slytherin, right? Self-mastery and that sort of thing I think can be both of them quite a bit. I think I'll lean towards going Slytherin only because I think, ambition and stuff like that has a lot to do with self-mastery. And I think in some ways Gryffindors are more show-offy when we think of the books and maybe a little less on self-mastery. So I think I'm gonna do Dustbringers as Slytherin, but I could see it going either way. Okay, next up, Edge Dancer. This one was very easy for me. In case you're wondering, their little thing is I will remember, and it's all about being with the innocents, remembering people who often get forgotten. I think that's a clear Hufflepuff trait, or Hufflepuff value, I should say. I subscribe to our Hogwarts houses are more about what we value than what we are. And I think Edge Dancers value seeing value in everyone. I think is very much a Hufflepuff value, loyalty, friendship. So yeah, I think the Edge Dancers are definitely Hufflepuffs. Truth Watcher is another easy one personally for me. I mean, their statement is I will seek truth. and it's all about finding ultimate truth and sharing it, and they're concerned with knowledge. They're considered the scholars of the Ninth Radiance orders. I mean, let's be honest, that's clearly Ravenclaw, right? Ravenclaws are all about valuing knowledge and truth above all else. So our Truth Watchers, I think that one's a pretty good one-on-one comparison. So Lightweavers. This one's a little hard for me. Their oath is, I will speak my truth. And it's like, I will speak my truth could be kind of like a Slytherin trait. It could be a Gryffindor trait. I don't think it's a Hufflepuff trait. But then what kind of throws me off is that Lightweavers are often considered to be artists. Like that's what it says in their actual description. It says they're most likely to be visual arts and theater, and they range a lot in personality, which I feel like kind of fits in Ravenclaw as like artistic and expressive, as like a different thing of Ravenclaw. I think like Ravenclaw or Slytherin, because we already have two in Slytherin, I think I will put the Lightweavers up in Ravenclaw, but that one's a little hard for me. I could see it going a lot of ways. Next is Elsecaller. Elsecaller is, I will reach my potential. I am very biased because I am an Elsecaller. And so I always think of like the personal growth being like personal knowledge growth, especially with Jasna as being kind of our Elsecaller example. So to me, they go in Ravenclaw, and no regrets. I'm putting them in there. That's where I think it goes. Seeking to improve yourself, I think, is kind of like maybe a Ravenclaw trait. So yeah, I'm putting it there. I don't care if it's biased. Next is Will Shaper, and Will Shapers is all about I will seek freedom, and it specifically says their oaths are themed towards freedom and letting people be free to express themselves and make their own way of life. It's that part of their oaths that make me think they might be more Hufflepuff, because I view Hufflepuffs as valuing everyone being able to live the way they want to live and being free to express themselves. I feel like that is maybe a very Hufflepuff value of being very accepting of everybody. Okay, the next one is Stoneward, and it's I will be there when needed. Okay, that one seems obvious to me. They talk about team dynamics and working with others and being there and putting the interests of others before their own. That's a Hufflepuff, right? Right? Team players, working with others, putting the needs of others before their own. They're into loyalty and fairness. Yeah, I think that's where that one goes. It's sometimes hard because a few of these Radiant Orders we just know less about than others. Like I feel like I know more about Windrunners and Edge Dancers and Lightweavers than I do about some of these other ones. Now, the last one is Bondsmith, and I am going to cheat a little bit. So there's only 3 Bondsmiths. And their whole thing is I will seek to unite. But all 3 of the Spren that give bondsmiths their power are all so different. Like, how could you expect the same kind of personality to bond the sibling as bonds the Stormfather, as bonds the Night Watcher? Like, even just looking at Navani and Dalinar, I would not put them in the same Hogwarts house. So my cheat is that a bondsmith could go in any house. It goes in none of the houses and all the houses. And that actually kind of works with I will unite, right? They're probably personalities that are more uniting, maybe have multiple ones. But I would think with only 3 bondsmiths that very likely all 3 of those would be in 3 different houses based on the Spren that they bond with. So yeah, I'm leaving it out because I just don't think it makes sense to assign it to a house. Okay, there it is for Knight's Radiance order. I have 3 in Hufflepuff, 3 in Ravenclaw, 2 in Slytherin, and 1 in Gryffindor. That actually surprises me because when I think of the Knight's Radiance, I would expect more to be in Gryffindor for some reason. I don't know why that is, but I don't know. I kind of like where I put everything. So you let me know. I did have that idea of maybe might be Slytherin and Gryffindor. Was that Will Shapers? I can't remember. Yeah, so there's some I think that can move around, but I'm going to keep it like this. So we'll see how many of those I get right when we finally get down to it. And be keeping track at home because I want to hear in the comments if I'm able to predict yours based on your Hogwarts house. Let's go to Enneagram type next. So Enneagram type 1s, let's just start at the beginning. They're the perfectionist, the reformer, the idealist. They're very into things being right and being just so and being rule followers. And I say 1 is a Ravenclaw. Again, I am a type 1, so am I biased? Absolutely. But in my defense, I feel like I'm a very true and blue Ravenclaw. Like some people are like, oh, I'm half and half. Nope, there is not a personality trait in another house I feel like I have. I'm a true blue Ravenclaw. So I think I can put type 1 in there. I could see type 1 also being in Slytherin, like the very ambitious part of type 1s. I could see being there, but I'm gonna stick it in Ravenclaw. Type 2s are the helper, the giver, the mentor. That's what they're called. Type 2s tend to be, very into friendship, very into that kind of emotion. I think that is a Hufflepuff trait. So I'm gonna go ahead and put Enneagram number 2 in Hufflepuff. 3 is the achiever, the performer, the motivator. It says type 3s are adaptive, excelling, driven, and image conscious. Now, this one was a little hard because I think a lot of those sound very Ravenclaw-esque. I was thinking maybe it's the image conscious because I think I view Slytherins as more image conscious than Ravenclaws. I mean, I think we're all image conscious to some degree. But when you think about the Harry Potter book, I think that is more of a Slytherin trait. So I'm gonna put type 3 in Slytherin, although I do think they may be, like I could maybe switch 1 and 3. I think I'm biased in putting 1 in Ravenclaw because I am a Ravenclaw, but I could see someone being like, no, I think the achiever might be more in Ravenclaw and the perfectionism is more in Slytherin. But this is my list, so this is, this is available, so you guys can go try it yourself if you want to. I'm gonna skip 4 because I need to talk about 4 because I really struggle with 4. So we're just gonna go on to 5. 5 is the investigator, the observer, the thinker. 5s are all about being perceptive and innovative, and they are a little isolated. So I think of 5 being like the maybe more introverted part of Ravenclaw, but yeah, they're observing, they're investigating, they like data, like that seems very Ravenclaw to me. 6 is considered the loyalist, they're skeptic, but they're also a trooper. They're security oriented, they're engaging, they're responsible, they're anxious and suspicious. That's what it says. And again, that reads, I think, Slytherin to me. Slytherins seem loyal. I know we use the word loyal in Hufflepuff a lot, but in this kind of loyalty, I think it's like loyalty to personal clan and personal ideals, which I think is a very Slytherin trait. Also being suspicious and like security conscious, I think is maybe more of a Slytherin sort of thing. Number 7 is the enthusiast. And what they say about them is that they're busy, fun-loving, spontaneous, versatile, scattered. That seems Gryffindor, right? Like the life of the party, always having fun, maybe a little scattered at times. That seems a good Gryffindor house sort of trait. That's where I would put it. 8 is the challenger. They're powerful, dominating, self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. Again, type 8, right? The challenger. When you think of the word the challenger, I think of Gryffindor for sure. Like always down for a challenge, always want to be the best. It's called the protector as well, the boss. I feel like those are very Gryffindor traits. Again, Gryffindor and Slytherin are kind of like two sides of the same coin. They have a lot of similarities between them, but sometimes like splitting them out is a little difficult. Number 9 is called the peacemaker, and the peacemakers are self-effacing, receptive, reassuring, agreeable, complacent, always want to be pleasing to others. Again, I think that's like a Hufflepuff sort of trait if we're really going down to it. Wanting to have peace between people, wanting to be agreeable. I think that's a very Hufflepuff trait. So 4 is a hard one for me. It's called the individualist. They're sensitive, withdrawn, expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, and temperamental. I struggle. I feel like, it's funny. I'd probably put it with light weavers. Like that sounds like a very light weaver trait, but I don't know if 4s are necessarily Ravenclaws. Like they could be because they're expressive, but I also feel like they might be a little Slytherin. Slytherin or Ravenclaw. I'll put it in Slytherin. But I would feel like a 4 might, I wonder when I look at my data if there's a lot of 4s that are light weavers. I feel like those might go together more than any other type. Okay, that was all 9 of the Enneagrams. Next, we have 16 of the Myers-Briggs personality types, which I'm gonna try to go through a little bit quickly because I know there's a lot of them. These ones I actually had a lot of problem with, and not to be a spoiler, but these are the ones that once I looked at the data, I got the most wrong. Like I had a really hard time predicting the right house and Knights Radiant order for these. So I don't think I did a very good job, but we're gonna go forward with what I originally said that I thought all these houses were in. So let's start off with ISTJ. They're quiet, serious, earn success by thoughtfulness and dependability, practical, matter of fact. So I put ISTJs under Ravenclaw because they're thoughtful and matter of fact, practical, reliable. That seemed like Ravenclaw traits. The next one is ISFJ, which is protective, warm, and caring. They're committed and steady in meeting their obligations. They're thorough, painstaking, and accurate, loyal, considerate, and notice and remember specifics that are important to them. I really struggled with Hufflepuff or Slytherin, and right now I'm trying to figure out why I put them in Slytherin. I think because they're the defenders, and in some ways I felt that again, Slytherins are very defensive of things that they love, and it specifically says they'll remember everything that's important to them. And I don't love that we always put like these negative traits on Slytherins, and I think there is that Slytherin who's like ambitious but really protective of what they care about. This one could move, but I did originally put it in Slytherin. Next is INTJ. They're imaginative, strategic, planners. They have original minds and great drive for implementing their ideas. Yeah, that seems Ravenclaw to me. Again, very goal-oriented, strategic planners. Always reads very Ravenclaw to me. Next, INFJs. I'm doing these in a weird order, I think, but here we are. INFJ, they're the advocate, quiet, mystical, idealist. They seek meaning and connection in ideas, relationships, and material possessions, want to understand motives, people, and are insightful about others, conscientious and committed to their firm values. Wow, I had already sorted these before I started this video, so it wouldn't take forever, but like I feel like the descriptions are so different. Like this one's saying they're quiet, but the other INFJ doesn't necessarily say that. I think this is like the introverted Gryffindor. That's how I originally put it. I think because of the way they're like so committed to their values and decisive, which always seems Gryffindor to me. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some introverted Gryffindors, right? They can't just all be extroverts. So I'll keep it with what my original thought was. The next one's ISTP. They're bold, practical, experimental, and they're tolerant. They're quiet observers until a problem appears and acts quickly to find something workable. So I put those ISTPs in Ravenclaw because they're decisive and they're trying to quietly determine what works. However, I could also see an argument for Hufflepuff because I feel like Hufflepuffs are probably that way as well. I notice I haven't put any in Hufflepuff yet. They're coming, I promise. The ISFP is the adventurer. They're artistic, charming, and explorers. The ISFPs are quiet, friendly, sensitive, and kind and enjoy the moment and what's going on around them. ISFPs, those are our first Hufflepuffs. It's funny because like it's called the adventurer, but then what's the description doesn't seem to match that. It says that they're quiet, friendly, and sensitive, loyal and committed to their values. Again, like these are the hard thing about these personality types is that everyone has a different explanation of what they are. So I'm gonna go by my original ones, which were from the Myers-Briggs website for ISFP. Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong. Maybe the Myers-Briggs website doesn't really know what they're talking about. Who knows? The next one's INFP. INFP are the mediators. They're poetic, kind, and altruistic. This one says that they're loyal to their values and the people who are important to them, want an external life that's congruent with their values. Now, INFP seems very Slytherin to me. Again, when we're talking about something that's congruent to your own personal values, that always reads Slytherin to me, who are very loyal to things like that. Next one is INTP, which seek to develop logical explanations for everything that interests them. Theoretical and abstract, interested more in ideas that's in social interaction. Now see, I have INTP between Slytherin and Ravenclaw, but they seem way more Ravenclaw to me. Maybe I need to move these around, but then it'll ruin my data. Oh well. Because I feel like innovative, curious, and logical makes more sense there, and bold, practical, and experimental makes more sense maybe in Slytherin. So maybe I'll move those two around and see if that helps me gain any more data. We'll have to find that out. I'm gonna switch those. I think they need to be switched. Okay, now we're finally on to the extroverted ones. We've got ESTP, which are flexible and tolerant, and they take a pragmatic approach to focus on immediate results. I put the ESTPs in Gryffindor. I think these are the, smart Gryffindors. They're still very energetic, they're perceptive, they wanna be around the crowds. The next is ESFP. They're the entertainer, spontaneous, energetic, and enthusiastic. Again, ESFP seems very Gryffindor to me. They're outgoing, friendly, and accepting and exuberant lovers of life. So yeah, I'd put that in Gryffindor, although I can see an argument for Hufflepuff. Again, it's always hard when we talk about enjoying things and being very friendly. It feels Hufflepuff, but I think Gryffindors are kind of like that too. Okay, we're almost done. This one's tough. Next, ENFP. They're warmly enthusiastic and imaginative, and they see life as full of possibilities. And they are described as the campaigner, enthusiastic, creative, and sociable. So the ENFPs I put into Hufflepuff. I think ENFP kind of reminded me of Cedric Diggory a little bit. He might be introverted, I don't know. The ENTPs are quick, ingenious, stimulating, alert, and outspoken, resourceful in solving new and challenging problems, adept at generating conceptual possibilities. The ENTP are smart, curious, intellectual, the debater. See, again, when I see that, it seems like it's to go somewhere different than I put it. So I had a hard time, actually. I'm looking at my notes. ENTP I wanted to put in Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. I ended up putting them in Gryffindor, but now I'm not so sure if maybe it should go in Slytherin instead. But see, then it'll ruin my colors. Smart, curious, and intellectual, though, also sounds very much like Ravenclaw. They just have different descriptions. Ingenious, stimulating, outspoken. Okay, maybe they do go Ravenclaw and not the Gryffindor where I put them. Okay, we'll put it there. That means I'm gonna have to change some things that I got right and wrong. ESTJs, The executive, organized, punctual, and leaders. ESTJs are practical, realistic, matter-of-fact, decisive, quickly move to implement decisions. So I put ESTJs in the Slytherin. I think I can support that, right? The executive, I can see the Slytherin being executive. If you're gonna be that, you have to be ambitious, which is why I put that there. ENTJ, it's funny because they're called the commander, bold, imaginative, and strong-willed. I had originally put that in Ravenclaw, but now I feel like it could go in Slytherin. But again, then we're not gonna have enough people in everything else. They're frank, decisive, assume leadership readily, quickly see illogical, inefficient procedures, and develop and implement something else. I guess I could see ENTJ Gryffindor if we're trying to make this an even 4x4. I could put them there instead of in Ravenclaw where I originally had them and put it with ENTP. That means I just didn't accurately guess myself. I guess my ENTJ part is not the same. Does not agree with my L-Scholar and Ravenclaw nature, I guess. Whatever. Okay, we got 2 more. We can make it through. The ENFJ is the protagonist? Yeah, charismatic, inspiring, and natural leader. ENFJ is warm, empathetic, responsive, and responsible. The ENFJ I put in Hufflepuff because they're inspiring, charismatic. I feel like that's a Hufflepuff quality. And then finally, we have ESFJ, the consul, caring, social, and popular, which I also put in Hufflepuff. I think that makes sense. Now we've got our 4x4x4. We did it. So I actually ended up changing a lot of the Myers-Briggs as I was doing it. I had done this all before, so I could go a little quicker, but then kind of reading the different descriptions of the picture I had felt like it changed my mind a little bit. So now I'm gonna have to go edit my data a little bit and see if I predicted any more correctly. But what do you think? Did I predict any of you? Did I get all of you, like all 4 right, or maybe only 3? Most people on my Instagram only had done 3 of these tests. So even if you've only done 3, did I correctly guess you? Did I get anything that was like all 4 correct? Also, let me know what you would have changed about any of these, where you think they go. That would be very fun for me. So like I said, I collected some data from my Instagram followers to see if I could guess any of these correctly. So I asked them to give me all 4 of their stuff. Some of them only know 3, which you'll see now. This is what's interesting. I haven't done permeations in a long time and combinations, but I think I did it right. I think there's something like 5,800 different combinations of all 4 of these personality types. Over 5,000. So the idea that I'm gonna predict correctly is gotta be very small. I was hoping that I'd predict a quarter of them, which may have been very ambitious, but I was thinking like there's gotta be some sort of correlation. Now, the data does have some issues, which I'll talk about after, but let's look at the data first because I think it's very, very fun. So first, this was only 65 people that ended up answering me, and they didn't always answer all 4 questions. So this is a very small data set, but let's just get into some of it first and look at it. So the first thing I thought would be interesting to see is the breakdown of houses and what Knight's Radiant Order are in those houses. So if we look first at Gryffindors, they're an even spread pretty much across L-Scholar and Windrunner, with a few Edge Dancers and a few Truth Watchers. Hufflepuffs, they had 41% Edge Dancer, which, hey, I put Edge Dancer in Hufflepuff, so there you go. There it is. I feel good about that. But the one interesting thing they got is they got both our Bondsmith and our Dustbringer, which we only had 1 of each, and we'll see that overall in the data. So they got both of those. And then in Ravenclaw, we see that Truth Watcher and L-Scholar are by far the biggest Knights Radiance Order, which are the 2 ones that I called. So I feel really good about that. I feel like I did a pretty decent job of sorting the Knights Radiance Orders into the houses. Now with Slytherin, we only had 3 Slytherins out of all of my data, and there was just 1 Lightweaver, 1 Edge Dancer, and 1 Truth Watcher, which just was not enough to even put up percentages. Honestly, none of the other ones were really enough either, but it's still fun. But yeah, so I feel like I did the Knights Radiance Order pretty well. Now the biggest thing we probably notice here, and I can put that up on the next page, is that we just had way more L-Scholars, Windrunners, Lightweavers, and Edge Dancers than anything else. Like that's all people were. We had a couple of Lightweavers and only 1 Bondsmith, 1 Stone Ward. So we didn't really just have enough data of the other Radiant Orders to really get an idea if I would have been more right about those. But the ones we did have, I feel like I called for the most part. I think Windrunners was the only one that maybe didn't necessarily live up to what I said as being for sure Gryffindors. Another breakdown, we had mostly Ravenclaws out of my data. And interestingly enough, we only represented 8 of the Myers-Briggs, 3 of which were the extroverted and 5 of which were introverted. And you'll notice here that particularly the Knight's Radiance orders and the Myers-Briggs only make up about 75% of data because not everybody knew those two. And then our Enneagram was decently split across the whole thing, except that we had no 8s and more 9s, but only 50% of people knew their Enneagram. So we had the least data about that. So you may be wondering how I did in predicting all 4 of somebody's types, or whatever you want to call it. The answer is not very well. I only got 6%, aka 4. And what's interesting is that they were all Ravenclaws and 1 Hufflepuff, which makes me think I know my own house better. So I had 2 Ravenclaw Else Callers, 1 was a 5, 1 was a 1, and they were both INTJs. Again, Ravenclaw Truthwatcher, who was a 5 and an INTJ, and then a Hufflepuff Edge Dancer, who was a 2 and an ENFP. Now, if I remove the Myers-Briggs from the conversation, then I double my right percentage. I guessed 13% or 10 correct ones if I took the Myers-Briggs out. So I guessed their house, their Knight's Radiant Order, and their Enneagram type. So I think I'm more perceptive of that. I think I just did not do a good job on the Myers-Briggs. Although I did guess 2 if the Enneagram was taken away of just Myers-Briggs and the Knight's Radiant and the Hogwarts house. Overall, it made me feel like I have a pretty good idea. I think if I could expand my data set, I think the way I predicted Knight's Radiant Order and houses would probably be pretty good. I think I could guess a quarter of those for sure, if not more. When we throw in the Enneagram, maybe still a quarter. I have no idea what's going on with Myers-Briggs. I do not understand it enough. So I'd be interested to see your guys's and how you would split up the Myers-Briggs personality types, because I really struggled with that. Overall, the biggest problem with my data set is that they're all readers. I mean, I got this data from people who follow my Bookstagram from BookTube. I feel like you have to be a pretty dedicated reader to kind of be in that level. So I have all these readers, and that's just different from the subset of people. Are we really going to assume that all Knight's Radiants are all readers? Probably not. Now, the issue is that we're never going to get that bigger population, because the conceit of this is that you have to be a reader to even understand or care about what a Knight's Radiant Order is, or a Harry Potter house, although I think that's big enough now that people don't necessarily have to read it to know. But yeah, this Knight's Radiant Order. Now, maybe someday, if I ever gain enough power somewhere, I can make some sort of survey and force people to take the Knight's Radiant Order test without having any idea of what's going on. That would be ideal, right? It would be ideal to get that biggest set of population. The chance of that happening is very little. But I do wonder if the reason we have, like, for example, almost 50% Ravenclaws in my data and so many introverts, for example, since I think I got 5 data points considered extrovert on Myers-Briggs, everyone else was introvert, if that had something to do with the fact that I am targeting readers in this. And I'd be very interested to see how that changed if the data set got wider. Something else I was interested in as I was doing this research is I was a little curious by how many Windrunners, Else Callers, Edge Dancers, and Truth Watchers we got, which coincidentally kind of coincide with our main characters and their Radiant Order types. So my question became, does the Radiant Order test try to push and give those orders more than other orders statistically, because people will be more excited about it? Again, I had the same question on Pottermore. Is there something they're pushing more than others? Now, everyone always says that there's big data out there and they're tracking everything we do. Well, no one's tracking this data, the data I need. The data is what's the percentage of people who take the test and get what kind of results? Is there a bigger percentage of Windrunners out there? I'd like to know. And is it because they're pushing that, or is that actually how it falls out? Well, we'll never know, but I'd like to know. And in fact, while I was trying to find those numbers, there is some controversy that Pottermore tries to keep all of the houses equal in size about, so you might not even be getting your accurate test result, which spicy take. But yeah, unfortunately, that kind of data just isn't available. I don't really have a platform to get data from everybody who aren't readers, but I do think it would significantly change the outcome, and I wonder if it would make my predictions better or worse. Maybe are there less Gryffindor Windrunners who are readers, Who knows? That would be kind of like an interesting take. When I had this idea, I wasn't gonna make a data video. It was just gonna be me sorting, but here we are. I had a lot of fun with it, even though, again, the data isn't very good, but it did make me ask more questions and even more curious, and I am tempted to try to get a bigger data set. and like force people I know just to take it and see if I can get like hundreds of data points. I don't know. Either way, tell me in the description box below what you are, and I can use that for my future data. Again, you're readers, so maybe it's different. As always, if you like these kind of stupid videos that dive way too deep into things no one cares about, please like and subscribe. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.